Welcome everybody to Queer Teens TT. Today we will be continuing our queer mentorship exercise, and we have with us Mix Deneka Thomas. So now I will take this opportunity to let them introduce themselves. So as usual, if anybody has any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat or you can unmute your mic and ask. And there will be after I've asked the pre-collated questions, there'll be a time period where you could ask all your questions. So yeah. I'm gonna let our guest introduce themselves.
Hey, sorry. So if you all see me fidgeting, it's because my hair is very damp. I washed it this evening and it is still dripping everywhere. My name is Deneka Thomas. I am a poet, arts educator, and art activist from Trinidad and Tobago, as you know. I've been doing this work, mixing poetry and arts education with activism for the past 7+ years. I kind of started doing that in 2014, and I've been doing that ever since. For those of you who follow me, you probably already know, but I'll remind you all because it's a thing. I won the first International Poetry Slam in 2018. I placed it in 2019, defended my title. I've been a finalist several times, and I've been traveling throughout Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and other countries internationally doing just that, right? That has been my job for the last 7 years, and I really enjoy doing that. And yeah, that is me in a nutshell. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So now I can get into the question part of our exercise. Okay, so the first question is, what has been the most challenging part of being a queer person in Trinidad and Tobago for you?
Challenging. Well, I have been existing in Trinidad in a state of closetedness for most of my life, to be quite honest. So most of my former years, I was closeted, so there wasn't really any problem there. I would have probably came out to everybody in 2018 when I performed that closet poem for the National Poetry Slam. It was around the same time that around the same couple of months I came out to my mom when I was pulled out of the closet because of a situation. And so from then it was weird because I guess it was something that was new to everybody around me. I didn't have the luxury of just existing as somebody who kind of had themselves figured out before that. So challenges, people are very weird about LGBTQ persons. And even more so as somebody who's an educator and who exists in a lot of professional and just corporate spaces, I think is always a concern. I work around a lot of children too, and I have worked with a lot of kids, whether it's me teaching workshops or other forms of just intervention. And I've had a few cases where parents is like, I find that girl looking like she kind of, I'm my daughter in that class or whatever the case may be. So I've had instances where parents pull their kids out of workshops and stuff like that, even though it had nothing to do with queerness. Like my queerness is not something that ever comes up in a conversation unless you bring it up, So yeah, I've had parents do that. I work in a lot of schools. I worked in a lot of secondary schools, and people will say things to their face, but they have conversations among themselves. They make faces. You feel an energy when you enter a room. People look at you, and I don't have the luxury of masking my queerness behind my femininity because there isn't much of that here. I am very I guess I wouldn't call myself masculine presenting, but I mean I identify as non-binary, and I try very much not to dress feminine. So I guess yeah, but I'm obviously queer is what I'm trying to say. So, and it's easy to assume that about me even if you don't have confirmation about it. So it has come up. It has never stopped my ability to do work, which is good. I've been followed before. I've been threatened before. Up until last year, I had a certain hate attacks done to me. People puncturing my car tires and a lot of weird things. So it has been challenging, but I don't want to say that it has been absolutely ridiculous. For the most part, I've learned how to navigate and make certain decisions that are always weighed by my sense of security and what I think I need to do to protect myself, which is things that I also advise everybody to do, make decisions based on, not based completely on I'm just doing this because I feel to do this. As much as we would love to do that, you can't because there are certain things that just prevent you from exercising like all of your needs and wants at a particular time because of your identity, but still trying to live and be comfortable in the space with the limited freedoms that we do have. So yeah.
Thank you. That was a lot to take in, to absorb. But you mentioned how you were actually pulled out of the closet. So how did your friends and family react when they found out?
Friends, friends. Cool. So let me start with my family first. I was pulled out by my mom because she suspected I was queer, and she may have suspected for a very long time, but did not let me know until that year that she had an idea, and she had asked me several times about it, and I denied it, obviously, because I thought she would have reacted badly. And I was living with her at the time, and I just wasn't in a position to go anywhere or move to anywhere if things had gone badly, And she was also, my mom is very religious. She's spiritual Baptist. We had flags planted in our yard, like that serious, So it was just something that I was always like negotiating on whether or not this is a good thing to do. And eventually she found out that I was queer, and in the moment she was like, this is not something that I agree with. This is not something that it's not a lifestyle that I could support, but you're my daughter and I love you, and cool, just don't bring it here. And fast forward to maybe last year, late 2019, early 2020, that changed, and she started letting me know that she didn't like what I was. She didn't like the fact that at the time I was living in the yard. I was building a house, like actually spending my money and building a house on our land, on our family land. And she was like, you have to leave. I don't want this here. It's either you leave or you just stop being what you are. And I chose to leave, and the relationship was a bit strained after that, right? So I no longer live home, and I have a very weird relationship with my family now because of that. It's getting better, but how these things go. And with my friends at first, for my most close, like my closest friends were like, cool. It's like, I know you, I know you on this thing a long time. Like I know before you knew. So I was cool, but then it had people who like I went to school with who started questioning whether or not I was like into them then, and people started messaging me and asking me questions and being paranoid. And like I not on all here. Like I never had it like things for any one of you. Like I was just as confused and trying to figure myself out as a teenager as everyone, everybody else where I wasn't even studying that. And so I had lost a lot of friendships around that time as well. I didn't mourn those friendships because it's like, if you're not supportive of me and all of me, like everything that I have, like everything that encompasses Deneka, then we don't want you all around anyway. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster for the most part. But I haven't suffered. I've suffered, but I don't want to say that it's been like this horrible journey. I think as I'm 28, as somebody who's 28 now, I think with the pandemic, I've actually only now started to sit down and like be like, wait, this was actually very, this was messed up, like how did I manage to deal with this so well? And so I'm only now kind of starting to ingest and digest and make sense and do some self-exploration and deal with things that I guess I was always on the move as well. So now that I have more time like to myself and calm and chilled and all of that, it's now kind of, it's now something that I'm dealing with. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, so has there ever been an instance where you have felt unsafe in public? And what was that like?
Yeah, a few times. I've been bombarded in several taxis, men jumping out of their whole selves to ask me if I was a lesbian. And I don't identify for a lesbian. So that instantly, it infuriates me. But I'm a very chilled person. So my infuriation is never externally expressed in any way, is mostly self-internalized. But yeah, men stopping me in the street to ask me if I'm a lesbian. I've actually been stopped and followed partially because a guy was convinced that he could reverse my queerness. Just let imaginations go wild there. I don't know what's the age group of students and persons in the groups are trying to be as, just appropriate as possible. But mostly men. I've had to change my route several times because I didn't feel safe. I've been catcalled. Men, I'm walking and people pulling my hand. And yeah, it hasn't been too crazy, but there have been a few instances. And for me, I generally always just try to remain extremely calm and just always try to think of what do I need to do now to ensure that I remain safe, even though my safety is currently compromised. And so far, it has worked where I've not been seriously harmed in any of those instances.
Wow, that sounds so difficult. Um, I just wanted to say that okay, so when the 40 minutes runs out, y'all can just use the same link to come back in on the Zoom. Okay, so the next question is, have you ever experienced discrimination and how did you deal with it?
Um, I may have experienced discrimination. If you're talking about instances where I may have maybe lost an opportunity or just been disadvantaged because of my queerness, I don't think so. At least I'm not aware of it. For the most part, I think I've handled myself extremely, just professionally, and just always managed to keep a standard. And so I think in all of the instances where I could have experienced any kind of discrimination, my work kind of spoke louder than my queerness. So it just kind of cancel itself out, if you know what I mean. In any other instances where I've experienced that, it's been mostly meaningless. To me, at least, I would classify them as extremely meaningless, and it didn't affect me in any way.
I understand. And I feel like the way that you said that you responded to it is really the best way to deal with those kinds of situations when they're, yeah. Um, so do you know of any queer-friendly meeting places that exist or existed before COVID-19?
Yeah, there were a few. Queer spaces. So Kaiso is a safe haven for persons of the LGBT community. I'm not sure for like teenagers if it would have been a space where teenagers under a certain age, maybe under 18, would have been able to hang out. But I feel like there used to be a safe house in Belmont where just used to have a bunch of events, parties. If you just want to go online, if people were there and you wanted to just go online and hang out with like-minded individuals, it was a space where it was just a very safe space to be your absolute self. And it didn't have a lot of that at the time, spaces where you could just be a whole yourself. So it was a space where you could do that. You didn't have to filter or mask. It doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not sure what the operations are at the moment since the passing of Colin, but I know that was a safe space. Queer TT was the name of that group. Can't remember the name of the group, but they used to have these podcasts. I think they recently started back, or they're going to start back with Terry and Sherry Sandy. They used to do this podcast, just kind of interviewing people from the queer community. And that space was also a space where, even when they weren't doing that, it was a space where if you kind of communicated and networked throughout the community, on a Sunday, on a Monday, on a Saturday, it was just a space where you could also kind of find yourself. Other spaces that were just safe, it was mostly like parties and kind of like you just lineman kind of vibes. Was Black Box had a lot of events. And yeah, there were other organizations that did like more official stuff, but like spaces where you could just like hang out, maybe attend a workshop and stuff. Those are the ones that I've worked with that I know were very consistent. A lot of organizations come and go. They start up hot and sweaty, they're around for a few months, and then they kind of disappear and fall off the radar. And my brain isn't equipped to say the least to keep up with those types of organizations, because I need consistency. But those are the ones I know that have been consistent. If you're looking for like organizations where you're in a situation where you need kind of help navigating those situations, you need help maybe with getting counseling and therapy, Silverline Foundation, they do therapy specifically for LGBT persons. If you're somebody who kind of, you're kind of navigating and negotiating whether to get therapy, but you don't know if this therapist is queer friendly, that's an organization you could go to. And there is also Central Counseling Services. I have to get the name correct, in Chagonas. I actually used to see them. She's a certified therapist. They are certified therapists. I don't know what their pronouns are. They're a certified therapist, seeing, I don't know if it's exclusively queer people, but I know a lot of queer people that I know see them. So maybe they're exclusively LGBT because they're also queer. And that's always a vibe. You could just talk and be yourself and express yourself and say, hey, my gal just frustrating me without, the therapist being like, gal, because I've gotten that before. I've seen straight therapists who's just like, you have to explain everything to them. I just don't want, when I'm emotional and I'm in my mood, I don't want to have to explain to you the things, you know? So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all those things. We'll talk more about the mental health stuff a little bit later. But yeah, all this stuff you said, really appreciate, really love that. Um, so yeah, cool stuff, cool stuff. So the next question is actually on the heavier side, but it is, how have you dealt with queer phobia, both internally and externally?
Um, that's a lot, because I still figuring out stuff even at this age. I don't think you ever stop living yourself. Um, hmm. So I grew up, like I said, in a very religious household. My mom, again, a spiritual Baptist. I grew up Catholic, even though my mom was spiritual Baptist. So just imagine the dynamic. I've been to confirmation, first communion. I almost became a non, believe it or not. And I've been I've been through the ringer with my own identity. And so I feel like everybody experience internalized phobias about their identity. And so mine was just always rattling with the possibility of not being loved by this big greater being that is so all-seeing and powerful and is supposed to hate what I am. And so very early I had the reason why I only started like exploring my sexuality maybe like at 23, 22, 23, when I hit my 20s, almost mid 20s, is because of that. It's because of the self-hate, because you know the world made us believe that we're monsters, we're blasphemous things, and so it has always been something that had it was just difficult. It was just like, you know, how am I to love myself if literally nobody loves me? You know, nobody loves this part of myself that I can't control. And so a lot of time was just spent for me making sense of actually scripture. I spent a lot of time debunking a lot of the scripture to make myself feel good. And then it it just made me realize that a lot of the things that we were taught are actually very incorrect. And I started to love myself when I realized that, um, you know, people are allowed to feel what they feel, and I am allowed to feel what I feel. And I am the person who have to deal with the consequences, if any, by me choosing to live a particular way. The phobia, that phobia has long gone. I don't have any kind of phobias about myself apart from me feeling dysphoric every now and then. And me feeling still at this age that I don't present myself the way that I see myself, you know. I think I do a better job at that when I'm not here in Trinidad. So for the very many times that I've traveled, I felt more at home in foreign countries where people didn't know me, and people don't care, literally don't care about you, and queerness is much more accepted, and they have a bit more, they're just familiar with it, they just have seen it, they've experienced it, and they kind of like, it's just like, oh, okay, it's just two people don't even look at you when you're in the streets unless you're wearing some scandalous thing and you just choose to stand out, right? You're very invisible in those countries. Here we so small that everything you do, everybody sees. Trinidadians, Trinbagonians, Caribbean people of diaspora. Um, we in everything, and so it's difficult to navigate wanting to express yourself 100% the way you feel and see yourself, because you know, people feel they're entitled to their opinion, most importantly. And so you're gonna get a lot of people telling you how they feel about what you are all the time, I think. I don't get it now because it's just like, well, people know that I don't care. But I imagine that I think I'm also extremely privileged. I'm also an extremely privileged queer person in that. Um, Again, a lot of the time, my other identities come before my queerness. Deneka is a poet. Deneka is an activist. Deneka is a this. Deneka is good at, like, all of those things come first for a lot of people, and my queerness is most of the times the thing at the back of people's minds. So I think I have also I'm also aware of that privilege because there are a lot of people, especially young people, who don't have all of these established things that comes before their queerness so that they could kind of exist in a kind of state of comfort without having to worry about those things. And I guess it just takes time to get there. Honestly, the only phobia that still gets to me to this day is, like, externally, is that of the family of my partner, who still, they're not there yet. For the most part, my other family members, my personal family members, they cool with it. And again, like I said, always just navigating how much of myself to present, how much of my queerness do I display at different moments. That's something that I'm always thinking about. And it helps because you're not gonna hold your partner and make out in front of your family if you know that, yes, they're okay with it. Some of them okay with it, but it's still like a sore spot. So it's just always navigating those things. And like I said, with my partner's family, they kind of just still, they're warming up to the idea. Not all of them, some of them. So I think that's the only place in my life where I feel uncomfortable with myself, where I kind of make myself small and I shrink, and I almost want to be invisible because I don't want, because those things that I say that usually come first, it doesn't come first with them. They don't know me like that. They don't care to know me like that. So my queerness is like the first thing they see. They see me come up with a shirt button up to my neck, is like, oh God, this black gal. So yeah, that is what it is.
But okay, so you mentioned the fact that your achievements more or less um kind of exempt you in a way sometimes from the general queerphobia that most people are subjected to. And that speaks on the importance of visibility, because when you, as a queer person who does all of these things and is so successful and so talented and so renowned, display yourself to our society, they see that this is not just a queer person, this is somebody who is a human who does great things. And that's one of the positive facets of visibility.
Of
But
course.
we back to the mental health discussion part of the the questions. So can you discuss the importance of mental health care for young LGBT plus persons?
Mhm.
And well, I think you answered this already mostly, but are you aware of any queer affirming mental health care providers?
Mhm. So I think mental health is like making sure that you take care of your mental health is important for anybody, but it's even more important for queer youth, for queer people, because we face so many. I just want to say, like, we just face so many challenges on a daily basis, internally, externally, and there is an agenda by the world to kind of silence what we are, and to just for us to go unacknowledged. And so, especially for youth, I think that there are a lot of things and a lot of answers that you may have that I don't think a YouTube video could help with. I don't think your friends, as much as they the counselors in their own right, and you need them. We need people and we need support systems. I think additional to those support systems that we have with friends, with the families who are, the family members who do accept us, for mentors and all of those things, seeing a mental health professional is extremely important. Being able to assess and deal with trauma, because it's a traumatic experience for a lot of us to try to be and live in our 100% true selves. A lot of us will get put out of our homes. A lot of us will get beaten. I've had friends who were beaten till they were bloody, for coming out. And how do you deal with that? It's something that you have to deal with on a daily basis. And you will always, as long as you live, you'll continuously have to unpack. Um, because I honestly don't think Trinidad and Tobago will be there anytime soon, you know. Yeah, I think it's just important. I've personally discovered a lot of things about myself through therapy. I feel very comfortable crying to my therapist, um, which I do a lot. And it just also just makes you feel good. It lets you know that you have somebody that supports you, and it's just extremely important. Else your health will just deteriorate, and that's never a good thing at all. So I 100% for that for young people. Like I also kind of like a lot of decisions that you're going to make are going to have a lot of consequences. And personally, I don't like to police people's decisions, but I've had young people come to me. Um, I always remember this one youth came to me wanting to come out, but was living in a home where they were getting abused by their mom for dressing more tomboyish. And I keep asking this young person, like, is this a good idea, like, for you to tell everybody that this is what you are right now? Is this the safest thing for you to do? Because you're gonna come out now, and then what? What's gonna happen? You're gonna continue to get beaten. You're gonna probably get put out. Who's going to support you then? How are you going to be all of these things you tell me you want to be? If you do this now, and kind of all of those things get thrown out of the window. They were also raped a couple of times by a family member. And it's just like youth, yeah, young people just have to deal with so much, like so much. And a lot of Caribbean parents don't believe in seeing therapists. They don't believe in mental health issues and disorders and depression. They don't believe in these things. And so I think there are small things that you can do to kind of educate yourself and equip yourself to be able to advocate for yourself. Like if you could learn to advocate for.
So you were talking about parents and their stigma towards mental health issues and their ignorance.
Yeah, so just saying that is really important for young people to learn how to advocate for themselves. Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it for you? Um, yeah, just being able to assess your needs and just critically think about like what you need in a moment and be able to advocate for those things, just very important. Of course, not all parents you can you can negotiate with, but for the most part, at least you try. And again, always assessing um, what is the best decisions for you.
Yeah, and what you said was so important about young people and them it being necessary for them to gauge whether is this a safe space that I'm in, or and acting with wisdom upon you know processing that kind of knowledge. Also, you mentioned being open about your emotions, and you mentioned the trauma and assessing trauma in young people. Living in a society that does not accept you, or that ostracizes you, or that treats you as pariah, is a trauma that is traumatic in itself. And so the vast majority, maybe all queer people, are victims of trauma by their mere existence. So yeah, I really agree with all that you said. And with the um mental health care provider part of the question, um, is there any kind of, would you be able to elaborate more about where young queer people can access mental health care apart from the silver lining?
Yeah, so I'm going to admit, I have to admit that it will be difficult for young people for the most part because even those that I mentioned, silver lining, central counseling services, and those are the two that I know of that I could think about right now. You have to, I think you have to pay for silver lining. If I'm not sure if you have to pay. I think you do have to pay for per session. You do have to pay at Central Counseling Services, which is they're completely queer, but you know there are fees attached. I think it's like $300 an hour, and I don't think that there are any free services right now where, you know, if you're a young person and I mean, young people don't have money. A lot of y'all are in school doing, finishing up school, in school, looking to go maybe in university. Still students, $300 is a lot, $400 is a lot to see a therapist. So I think an alternative to that is when you really need some professional advice, go to your mentors, seek out mentors. My mentors have helped me tremendously. I didn't come so far because I was operating by myself and I was just this lone wolf doing my thing on my own. I had a lot of people that supported me and that I could have gone to for certain type of advice. And so I think, but I only started developing those things obviously as an adult. Take an agency don't just mean saying, mommy, hey, I need to see a therapist, because your parents will look at your $300 per session, you're mad or, you know, it is also kind of seeking out your mentors who for a very long time will be your therapists, because who else you could go to, what else you could afford, you know. You might just need advice to make certain decisions, you go to those people. You go to your friends as well, but when you need that little extra, I guess, experience and wisdom, I guess, go to your mentors, seek out mentors if you don't have, and kind of like rely on them. Because believe it or not, even though I think personally for me, with people who I've mentored in the past, even though I am not like this certified therapist, I don't have a psychology degree. I did a few courses when I was doing my degree, but I'm not certified. From my personal experience, and also I think what I do is, if I don't have the answers, because I know people who have the answers, I know professionals who do have their psychology degrees, who do have these connections, who have these experiences, that I could say, hey, I know somebody who think, what you think, how you think we should handle this, like, and I also kind of go back to my mentors and my connections to also try to help that person, you know. So do that. Reach out to somebody who you look up to, or you just, I don't know, you think that they look like they, you know, they align with what you align with, and yeah, that's the vibes.
Yeah, that's really great advice, because it's really important to make use of the resources that are available to you in this society where we don't have a lot, especially as young people and especially as queer people. Um, so the next question is, do you engage in activism? Um, and can you describe your experiences with the activism that you engage in?
Yes, I do. I do consider myself an activist. I particularly care about issues surrounding gender. So gender-based violence, SRHR, sexual reproductive health and rights, LGBT issues and queerness, the experience of just queer persons, and making those, I guess, amplifying the voice of those issues for persons who can't speak about it, and also environmentalism. So those are my areas, mental health as well. And any other thing that I think is beneficial and meets at that intersection, because nothing happens to itself. All of those issues meet at a junction and interconnect and intermingle. So I find a way to just work through all of those. I've worked with a few organizations that are heavily based on activism. One of them would have been Girl Be Heard in New York. They are all about like educating girls, not just girls, I think they deal with non-binary persons, trans women as well, and kind of like educating them about different social justice issues. And so, yeah, I've done everything from organizing rallies. I mean, I was the program manager of the program as well, and the organization as well. So I was responsible for just kind of spearheading a lot of those activities for at least 3 years, from 2016 to 2019. And so, yeah, everything from rallies. I've worked with Anya Youngchi, you know, when she was doing a lot of that activism work. And I've partnered with so many organizations in Trinidad. I don't think I have organizations that I didn't work with where that is concerned. My thing is I always just want to work with young people. That is where I think my energy and my talents is just most rewarding, to work with youth. I would have worked at Trinity College. I was there for poetry, you know, but somehow the activism just wind itself in, and I started to teach them gender, because the boys just had a lot of questions about things that I felt like, why these teachers not teaching these boys about consent and gender-based violence? Why? So I also always kind of just took it upon myself to insert these lessons, even though that's not what I was there for. I just did that. So yeah, I have been doing a few things on the ground, and I don't want you to. I often find people separate the poetry from the activism. My poetry and every poem that I create, the mere fact that I'm, especially the topics that I write about and perform about, is also an act of activism. It is advocacy, because I've made the personal decision to work within a niche, work within specific themes, and I don't work outside of those themes. I rarely go outside of those themes. I rarely work with organizations whose ideals and perspectives don't align with my own. That is also an act of activism. And yeah, if you're not with it, then as the vibes, I just won't work with you. So yeah.
Wow, that's so great. And it really is great to take your values and impart them or express them through your activism and your artwork and your poetry. That's really cool. And you spoke about working with young boys and talking to them about consent and GBV and such. And that's really important because we do need to educate young men and boys about all of these issues. A lot of people aren't afforded those things within the education system. And so I am really, really glad to see that you imparting your knowledge on the next generation like that. And that's really valuable to the youth. Wow. Um, so the next question is, do you think our nation will become safer for LGBT plus persons anytime in the near future?
Personally, I want to say no. I don't think it will happen anytime soon. And I think the pandemic set us back so far. I think we were making a lot of progress. But I think just the mere fact that this whole idea of acceptance and equal rights for the LGBT community, specifically in Trinidad, it will be on the back burner even more now because we're trying to recover from this pandemic, and we will be recovering from it for a long time. I think something that our the people in power forget is that um, gender, issues of sexuality, just the minorities of the nation, the issues that we face, is something that should also always be considered when making decisions, and it is never considered. You know, I I've sat, I've literally, I'll never forget this. I think it was 2019. I sat on in a round table discussion with all of the ministers of Trinidad and Tobago. I was there with an organization called WINAD. They wanted me to be there as a representative of youth, right? There are a few representatives for young people who were young people that were like in different, they were doing different things. And I was there representing this artistic voice. And I'm telling you, ministers from Minister of Health, Minister of Education, all of these high ministers, Dr. Kirawi was there. And I am listening to these people ask questions. I'm on a table, I think I was around the table with, what's the name of this guy? One of these ministers, right? And I'm sitting down on the table and I'm feeling like, okay, this minister is going to hear what we have to say. I came prepared. I'm going to talk about these things. Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to make all these good points. And then we're going to see a change in Trinidad and Tobago maybe next week because he's going to take notes and he's going to really contemplate some of the things that we're saying. And I think that what we were talking about, the theme was how can we create, what can we create and what systems we could put in place to engage youth at a social level, to kind of reduce crime, right? In low income areas like Gonzales and Laventille and all these things, right? How do we engage young people in a way that is meaningful and tangible and also has that ripple effect? And I came prepared to prove to them how arts education is the way to go. Because through arts education, you could filter so many other themes and teach youth about so much more than just having like a basketball or football program that is going on done in 2 months and then they're going back to doing the same old stupidness that they were doing, you know? It's not giving them any kind of skill, they're not building any interest other than kicking a football and then they're going back to their lives afterwards, you know? And they asking questions, and every single time I put my hand up, I am being overlooked. And the purpose of this meeting was to hear youth opinion. And after that, I kind of stopped and it's a very sad thing to have somebody, you know, to be excited about a thing and then be that demotivated. It's just like as long as these men, especially these men in power, as long as these men in power are in power, I think we will take very long to reach where we want to go, you know, as a country, because they're not progressive thinking. They still making laws and guided by very archaic systems. And we were taught to not question those systems, to not go against them. You know, it's ingrained in us to keep doing things because, and for no other reason than it's just how we've been doing it. Why I want to change it, you know? So I don't think that we will see great changes, like big leaps. But I do think there are small things that we can do on the ground so that the society as a whole is a bit more just accepting. One of them is obviously visibility. But visibility isn't easy. It also comes at a risk. You know, the people who make themselves visible for the community put themselves at risk every time they are out there, you know. People recognize me from 2018 when my picture was in the papers because Newsday and Guardian and all these papers want to put poet win slam with LGBT peace, ting, whatever, whatever, whatever. People read that article and they don't forget the face, I have people stop me and they say, oh, I see you on TV. You into them thing, girl, People make comments. You put yourself out there and you put yourself at risk, but really putting yourself out there and putting yourself potentially at risk for this grander, greater good. You know, were we winning and were we losing at the end of the day? So yeah, I think I personally like also it's like also debated like whether or not to even stay in the country as a queer person, and whether I'll be more comfortable, more accepted, more appreciated, more valued in another country, which I've experienced. I've experienced it before. Racism and thing aside, it's a different energy. And like my focus is just to always make sure that I think just that home fix first. Like we need to just continue to do the work here, and hopefully in my lifetime, I don't know how long I have on the planet, we see some other change. In 2018, I think we had the Jason Jones case that was one, and so the buggery law was removed. But how long again do we have to wait until being queer is actually not a crime? Because it's still a crime, eh? It is still a crime. You can still get locked up for being queer. Um, if officers jump out themselves and they suspect that you're a lesbian or you're gay, you can get criminally charged for that. So I'm not sure how long again, 10 years, 20 years before it decriminalized. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we might be hopeful, we might be optimistic, but we also have to be really realistic about it, realistic about our situation, and realistic about the social attitude towards us as people and the political attitude. As soon as you mentioned the politicians, specifically ministers of health, well, the minister of health, my mind ran to an instance that occurred that we heard about when we had our session on queer history, where the current Minister of Health, Mr. Terence Singh, actually made he made a statement about, and this goes into what I said about CSR, comprehensive sex education before and stuff. Um, he made it, and every week we have to talk about Terrence for some reason, this man. But he was talking about, okay, so there was, I'm not sure of the situation exactly, but what I heard was, and that was like a first-hand account of it, was that the conversation was about prep and pep for queer plus men and trans women. And he said that he didn't want to like provide funding for providing prep and pep to people who need it, because he somebody said there's news articles about it, because he didn't want because he didn't want to be funding that kind of IT behavior or something like that, or encouraging it or something like that. So yeah, we live in a country. Yeah, my sibling is next to me laughing. I can't embarrassing. They embarrassing my today. Um, yeah, it's like even the politicians don't care about us, and they're willing to say it in public. They're willing to just bad talk us because they know that generally nobody cares when they make queerphobic statements or they keep queerphobic legislation in place.
Yeah.
And is really a difficult thing.
It's the same thing with sex workers, they can't get certain just medical assistance items to just be safe because people feel that sex work is not legitimate work, and it just shows how backwards we are. Like, what? What? People, for me, and I think this is my my existence, my entire existence will be spent whether in poetry. A lot of people do not know, but I also have a short film company, and we've created one queer film so far, a 1 minute film. But we have a lot of queer films. I write the films as well. We have a lot in the works, and the idea is to not like we need to be humanized because we are humans based on the mere fact that we are humans, but to continue to humanize the queer existence and experience, because I think a lot of people see queer and they see sex first. They see, or they don't see, oh, these are two human beings that love each other and want to build a relationship with each other and a life with each other and treating each other good and they're healthy. They see, oh, two men having sex per annum, you know? So yeah, to humanize queer relationships and just queer existence the same way we would humanize without thinking straight relationships and experiences. I think that a film that we're working on, I shouldn't even say that now, when things open up is what happens when, like, just the experience of losing your partner, like maybe your partner died, and like all of these simple human experiences that we don't get to see with queer couples and queer people, because all we think about is, oh, what they're doing in the bedroom, you know. So I think for a very long time, like, that's what my work will be. That's just the direction it would head in. And I think a lot of people should try very much to do the same thing, because I think we have to spoon feed the Trinidad, like the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, like people and these communities and our society specifically. We just have to spoon feed them it, you know, they're not gonna try to become better on their own.
Yeah, and it is really disheartening, but also that's the reality that we have to work with. And you mentioned sex work. That I'm so passionate about that topic, especially like the decriminalization and such, because it disproportionately affects trans women, and trans women are the most vulnerable people in our society, especially Black trans women, especially Black trans women who are sex workers. And when they when they're victims of violence, when trans women are victims,
Mm-hmm.
where people don't have rights. If a
Right.
trans woman who is a sex worker experiences violence on the job, for her to go and report that, to report, we know that police officers, when queer people go to report violence against them or even any kind of offense, they get made fun of. They get,
Mm-hmm.
people don't take them seriously.
Yeah, they
And it's
discriminate
like, that
against.
is, yes, definitely. And that is amplified and multiplied when it comes to trans women, and
Right.
especially trans women who who engage in sex work. And that's why I'm so sorry, I'm
Mhm.
doing a passion talk right now.
No,
But
do your thing. Do your thing.
that's why I'm really happy about the work that 3TC does on the Trinidad and Tobago Trans Coalition, because
Mhm.
Miss Zoe and Miss Brandy, they
Yeah.
they they work to protect trans women
Mhm.
and trans people uh, throughout the umbrella.
Yeah.
And and Miss Zoe was talking one time about her work with trans women who engage in sex work, and young trans women specifically, and young people are so vulnerable.
Mhm.
And it's just, it's like, when will we get simple legislation put in place to protect people?
Yeah. It's these small things. These small things that are big things when you don't have it.
Yeah, I feel like my thing, like, queer people are vulnerable, but I feel like the most vulnerable of queer people are trans women,
Mm.
and those are also the people who are statistically um they experience higher rates of violence and hate crimes. And
Yeah.
it's like that's like my life. I just want to use my life to protect trans women. Like people are always like we must protect women, and when I think that, I'm like, I feel like sometimes does it implies that women are inherently vulnerable, and it's not the vulnerability of women in society is not, it's not the fault of the gender systems that we have in place, and it's just that women are vulnerable, when in fact we know that women are vulnerable because they are taught to be vulnerable, they are forced to be vulnerable, they are treated as though they're vulnerable from birth. And misogyny contributes to that so much. And it's like
Yeah.
when people say protect women, I think, well, women wouldn't need as much protecting if our society treated them as humans. And when I hear protect women, I think protect trans women, because trans women and trans women are extremely vulnerable and they need so much protection. I need to stop talking. The next question is, or do you have any advice for queer teens?
What type of advice, boy? Yeah, you have to be specific because it just has so many things. It has so many things I could say. I could talk. I could talk for a very long time. Um, I think I will always just echo the thing that I think I've been repeating for the entire night because like first and foremost, I just care about our safety and your safety and queer youth safety, regardless of if you're um, trans, not trans, non-binary, wherever you fit in the community. I think just try and make decisions that keep you safe first and foremost. It have a lot of decisions that you will make based solely on your safety that will be uncomfortable and it will be hard and it will be challenging, but I promise you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I know that's cliche, but coming from somebody who I take it from somebody who's been through the ringer, I did not have a great childhood. Apart from my queerness not being the thing that made my childhood challenging, I didn't have a great childhood. I thought when I was younger, when I was going through those things, that it would never end, that it wouldn't get better, you know. I've been depressed. I've been there. I've I acted out in school. I mean, I don't look the part, but I acted out in school. It just wasn't comfortable. It wasn't good, and it got better. It got better. And when I did realize that it was better, I was like, yeah, no, like wow, you know. I'm at a point where sometimes I even like wonder if I did go through that, you know, some of these things, because it's just like things are not perfect now, and it will never be perfect, especially for queer people. It will never get to a point where it's 100% perfect unless you're living in some first world countries that have their shit together. And even then, the mere fact that you are a person of color and then you're a person of color and diaspora, like life will always be hard in some way. It'll always have something against you. But there, there does come a point where you can live comfortably. And despite having to deal with those challenges, you can be happy. You just have to wait it out. You have to, it's a waiting game, really and truly, you know. And I know that's hard for some people because, you know, you just feel like I just want happiness now. I want things to be how I want it now. If you're a trans youth, you wanna transition now. We can't even really do that in Trinidad as freely as the US. But you want to be that way now. You want to live in your truth now, and you just can't. You know, we don't have a lot of the luxuries that a lot of other people have, and so it's just a matter of really relying on your communities. Don't think that you could do it alone. Seek out communities that support you And yeah, just wait it out, just wait it out. And I promise you all that it gets better. I don't know if Trinidad will, magically just be a very happy place for us, a very comfortable place for us, but it does get better. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's really powerful advice, and we really appreciate it. And I'm sure everybody who's here appreciates it. So now we're gonna open up the floor for anybody to place questions in the chat if you'd like, or if you would like to unmute your mic and ask our guest a question. Now is the time for you to do that. So we have a question from my sibling here who is going to ask.
Hello. When did you first start experiencing gender dysphoria?
Wow, it's a number 6. I started experiencing gender dysphoria when I was 11, 10, maybe 9. I started experiencing it very, very early, and I didn't know what it was, obviously. I started growing breasts and I hated them. And I feel like all girls started hating them. Maybe not. My sister was excited about all of the changes her body was going through, and I hated it. Like, I was depressed about it. And I used to be crying all the time about this thing. Apart from me just being unable to regulate my emotions at the time, I just was always sad about this thing. My mother dressed me in pink. I hated it. Right? Always wanted to be combing up my hair in bubbles. I hated that. And then it got even deeper because I started around that time, around 10, around 11, I started hanging out with the guys in my neighborhood. And I was like, I feel kinship with whatever it is they're doing. You know, that's just how it was, just like, I feel like home with my bros. Like, why can't I be this way all the time? And yeah, I there were a lot of things that I tried to do to make that dysphoria feel less. I tried to dress more neutrally, but my parents weren't having it. My mom wasn't having it. And she just fought me down for a very, very long time about dressing a particular way, spending a lot of time with these. The only time I didn't feel dysphoric throughout my teenage years was when I was hanging with my bros, because we had gotten so close that they considered me one of the boys too. And that feeling was just chef's kiss. So yeah, very, very early, very, very early.
Wow. Does anybody else want to ask anything? Does anybody want to unmute and ask? Or you could put it in the chat if you're shy again. You could go ahead.
Everybody in the group is queer, or
I think we have like 1 or 2 allies, but
okay.
the vast majority.
Yeah, safe space, man. Don't feel shy to ask things.
And if anybody would like to ask, like re-ask, like if you asked the question last week and you want to ask it again, you're free to do that. Hi.
I wanted to know, what would you consider the best time to come out to your parents?
That depends. There is honestly probably never a best time to come out, based on who your parents are. And so I think for me, the ideal time is I guess a better way to frame that. I think An ideal time to come out would be based on your situation. If you think your parents will be cool, like if you know your parents and you think that they might be cool, then come out, try it. There's no going back. But honestly, I think as Caribbean youth and other queer persons, mentors might advise otherwise. But for me, I think just in case, prepare for the worst. Make sure you have a backup plan. Make sure you have a place to say just in case they react badly and throw you out, because it's a real possibility. More especially for guys, the girls kind of get away with it. You might get a cocktail and they might tell you none of that, we're going to church tomorrow. But with the guys, I think especially, make sure you put certain things in place so that your safety isn't compromised. Make sure you have a friend who has a vehicle that could pick you up just in case your parents decide to go berserk and maybe beat you or something like that. Because I've heard of cases where it has happened before. I've heard of cases where I've dealt with it firsthand, where a young person came out to their parents, they put them out to beat them, and they ran away, and we couldn't find this young person for weeks. And so I think just make sure you put those things in place. Make sure you have a place to stay just in case. Just put everything in place first. If you really feel like it is the right time, you want to do it, you cannot wait anymore, I think that's the best advice I could give you. Put those things in place. Make sure that the place that you want to stay could stay for a while, to give your parents time to cool out. Maybe you could talk.
You were talking about putting things in place so that if you need to stay a while away from your parents, just to make sure that you're safe. I don't know if there was anything else.
Yeah, just make sure and put things in place. Just prepare for the worst, I think there will never be a perfect time. I think there might be a case where they think that they could correct the behavior, because a lot of people feel like it could be corrected. You just need to gal, you just need to try girls. How you know that? They will ask a lot of questions. And also just do your research, because they will ask a lot of questions and you want to be educated about it so that you could talk to them about it from an informed position, not just based on feelings, like, because your feelings could also just get the best of you. And it's just important for you to be ready mentally and emotionally as well. Work through it first before you do that, just make sure you're absolutely ready. And that will be perfect.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah. Somebody put a question in the chat. But it's gone now, so you can unmute your mic and ask if you like. Danny.
I see something came in here. What advice do you have for
Okay.
younger persons to protect themselves from older persons that may have ulterior motives despite originally trusting them? What type of ulterior motives we talking about? Yeah, that is a very challenging one, because I think it is very difficult. I mean, if you're a very aware young person, there is something in you that tells you that a young person, an older person may have malicious intentions. So that's the first thing. And when your body tells you that something is wrong here, like, listen to it, don't second guess it. And when your alarm systems go off, I think you should definitely try to find an adult that you can trust, to help you work through that situation. Every situation is unique. So I don't want to use an umbrella for every situation, you know? Everyone will be unique. Every instance where you feel unsafe around an adult will be unique. And so you have to deal with that situation for that situation. But the first thing I would do is talk to an adult, because there are so many instances, and I'm going to share TMI here. Well, it's not TMI, this is a safe space. I was sexually assaulted when I was younger, multiple times, right? I could talk about it now because I've worked through it. Catch me like about 3 years ago and it would have been a different story. But I was sexually assaulted multiple times, over 12 times, right? By different people, family members. And I think we're not that far apart in age, all of you and I, because I'm 28, might have like a 10-year, 11-year, 12-year difference. That's not too far. And I think what you all have the benefit of is being able to have conversations like this, where you have a kind of awareness that I didn't have when I was younger. I didn't have language to talk about what I was going through at the time, right? I actually blame myself for a lot of these things, because it's like, how could you not raise an alarm? How could you not say something like, why didn't you speak about these things that was happening? And then why did it happen so often? And then you ask yourself, well, how come the adults didn't realize that something odd was going on? And this is what I talk about when I talk about, if you are in a situation where you are aware, which I think all of you are, where you are in tune with your personal internal alarm system, because mine was working. It's just I didn't know how to work with it. I didn't know what to do after you realize this person not safe. I'm not safe around this person. What do I do? One thing you can do is try your best to not find yourself in a situation where you are alone with this person. If this person makes you feel unsafe, if you think that this person has ulterior motives, never let there be an instance where you're alone with this person. Always, if you have to be in the same space with this person, let it always be with somebody else. And I'll go so far to say, if you're still not comfortable to tell your parents, find another adult to speak to, right? And if you know there's going to be a situation where you're going to be in a space with this person, alert that person, alert that adult, so that either they get you out of the situation or they find themselves where you are to further protect you against this person, right? If it is an instance where this person is already making inappropriate sexual advances or just uncomfortable advances, these things should be reported. And I know a lot of young people are afraid to make reports, but one of the things I regretted is not being aware enough to bring that type of alarm, because oftentimes we get away, right? We escape this potential predator, this person hiding under the skin of a family member, under the skin of a close family friend, or whoever, under the skin of even a mentor, you know, whoever. Predators come in every shape, form, size. We escape this person, or you escape this person, but they go on to harm somebody else. Are we doing any good if we escape and we free and we didn't experience the trauma, but we didn't really do anything to stop it from happening to another person, you know? So it's just so many things to navigate and negotiate. But first and foremost, as they tell you, if you're in a plane and the plane going down, secure yourself first, put your mask on first to make sure that you're safe. Talk to an adult, doesn't have to be a parent, and try not to be in the same space with that person, and just trust your instinct. Trust your instinct 100%. Use your friends as well. I've had a lot of situations where I wasn't comfortable as an adult, and you don't have to explain things to people as well. Like there were instances where I didn't feel safe. I didn't even explain things. That I was just like, yo, come and walk with me now. I need to do something and I just don't feel comfortable being alone right now. You don't have to say, oh, I think this person have these particular moves. It's like you don't have to do that. You just strategically think of how you could include people even without them not knowing, you know, to safeguard yourself.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and that's important stuff to think about. And I'm really sorry that you had to go through that experience. Um, does anybody else have any questions, or should I continue with the set list? Nobody. Y'all can unmute if you'd like. It's all okay. But if anybody doesn't have anything, also if you are shy, you can also private message me a question and I'll read it out loud to our guest. But for now, I will continue with the list of questions, which is almost done. So is there any information or experience you would like specifically to share with us as queer teens?
Yeah. I want to say that a thing I feel like a lot of folks do talk about this, or I've heard people talk about it, but there are a lot of things to look forward to. And I think one of them is just the idea of like the world is bigger than Trinidad and Tobago. And there is a possibility of just living a very happy, comfortable life of just being able to live out your whole dreams and self, and it not limited to here. And so the goal is to stay alive, firstly, stay healthy, stay wholesome, until you just get to a place where you could experience that. I remember my first time experiencing culture shock. I was in San Francisco, first time in San Francisco, and I didn't pack well. I packed like trash. And yes, I checked the temperature and the expected temperature for the week that I would have been there, but it's Trinidad. Them degrees don't mean nothing to you until you already experience it for the first time. And I don't know what happened. I did not pack a closed-toe shoe. I don't know where I feel I was going. So I had to buy one. And I'm standing up in the line in Payless. And I talking about it and my eyes watering because it was just the first time I experienced that. I'm standing in the line in Payless and my eyes zoom in on these two guys in front of me. And all the time I'm like just staying, and then my eyes focus, and then I saw them hold hands and kiss. That's all. These two men hold hands and kiss. And my first instance was like my first reaction automatically was to look around and see how other people was perceiving them, what people was looking. Nobody was looking at these two men in the line. And I was just like, damn, this is amazing. Like you could just be yourself here. And I'm like, what? I called my friend home, my best friend home, and I was like, listen, I'm moving to San Francisco. I am moving to San Francisco. You could just be yourself here. And it was the happiest, it is still one of the happiest moments I've ever experienced in my life. It didn't even happen to me, just being able to see queer love being expressed without people skinning up the face, without people throwing comments, batting our eye. It was just the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my life. That experience, and not just even that, we went to this park and gay people just lounging in the sun free, like what? And all like what? Like I was just like, this is absolutely amazing. And this is what I want for myself, for my family, my future family. Like this is what I want. And so if there's any comfort for young people, I think yeah, aim for the stars. Like you don't have to stay here, right? Trinidad is not the limit. You can expand and go somewhere else and be just as or even more happy. Um, and like nothing wrong with that. The world is so much bigger, and that is something that you can aspire for and work towards. So just research your options. I am currently engaged and I can't get married in Trinidad, right? And it is sad. It cannot be done here. Simple basic things. It just cannot be done. Today I had a conversation with my partner about what would happen to my things if I die, because automatically they will go to my family because they don't recognize, even if we get married in another country, which we plan to do, that certificate that we get is null and void here. So it's just, we will, like I said, we will always have to navigate the world with challenges, but there are things that you can look forward to that I think will be pretty dope. I think yeah, you just aim for the stars. It's not impossible. It's just difficult, and what is without difficulty?
Yeah, that's really inspirational. And I can't imagine how I would have felt if I were in such a situation. I'd have probably I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, I cried big man tears, man. It's okay to cry and thing. It's all
Yeah. Oh, congrats on your engagement. Wow. That's really cool. That's really cool. Wow.
okay.
Okay, so we on the last question, y'all. So again, I'm gonna press y'all if y'all have any questions. Now is your chance. Like take advantage. Um, but yeah, the last question is not really a question. Is there anything you would like to know from us or about us at Creatines TT or about Creatines TT? So yeah, that's the last question.
Um, I think my question is always, I guess, what is the 5-year plan? Where do you see yourselves as a group in the next 5 years? Like, what are your long-term and short-term goals? What are your long-term and short-term goals for the group? What's the plan? What's the vibes?
Yeah, so that's actually a difficult question. I feel like I kind of hardly really want to answer it. Um, well, 5 years. I mean, I
Two
won't be a
years, 2
teen.
years, 2 years, 2
Okay,
years.
2 years. Well, I mean, the plan is to, branch off and, engage more people from other places. I the aim here is not really activism, it's just, vibes, interaction and community, and that's what, we're here to do.
Mhm.
Um,
Make a
You don't have to have all the
difference.
answers now. I just chicken fire. Like,
yeah.
you feel like
No,
you
but
need to answer now. Good thing
yeah,
about
it's good to think about.
yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. Also, it's to think about how do I get more people to engage, not willingly, but more passionately, so that when I am no longer a teen, younger people like this one here, um, could take over and run things, so I don't have to be here talking all the time, or
Like,
even like
that's a big
even if
step,
like maybe yeah, even if like even like soon, like I really don't I just always someone talking plenty, and it's like if anybody wants to take over next week, I had a list of questions I could send all you. It's really about the boss said he wants to step down. That's the aim, that's the goal, as
So
soon as
much,
possible
so
too.
much. It was so
Um, but yeah, and it's also about education, because I feel like it's very important for queer people, queer youth especially, to know their history, because that's really important to understand their identities and the facets of their identities, to understand themselves and their feelings, and to feel validated,
correct.
to engage in community, because queer people need community. That's like a really, really important part of our lives. And to see themselves and to see people who make them feel as though I am human and I am okay and I am good and I
Mhm.
am just me.
Yeah.
That's yeah, it's just about validating and empowering young people, young queer people specifically. And as long as we here could keep doing that, that's the plan. That's what we're gonna do. And however we need to do that, however we need to do that, that'll have to happen. But yeah, I think I say enough?
You
I talk a lot.
I don't know what to say.
I think that's,
Good man, good man.
for now, that's what's going on.
Yo.
So yeah, so Joel put a question in the chat. Okay, the question is, how could people who are not LGBT plus adequately support their friends who are LGBT plus?
Think through being educated is really the same advice I would give to somebody who wants to be anti racism, anti-racist. The same advice applies. Educate yourself, um, be informed, and also like pull up your friends when your friends being homophobic and inappropriate, and also educate them. Like the only way we could move forward is if people are educated and they begin to understand that queerness is, like I said, is more than, is so many layers. Just like, we are human beings and it has so many layers, even more layers to our existence, because we have so many different identities and complexities and so many things we're working through. And so as an ally, just being educated, making sure that you do your part to not encourage homophobia, not encourage harmful advances towards persons of the LGBT community by people who are straight, who are not from the community. And yeah, just support the vibes. That's the most, I think, that you could do. Simply saying nothing, even if you're not somebody who's not homophobic. Um, even if you're somebody who's not homophobic, yes, saying nothing is not enough, because lives are at stake. Queer people's lives are always at stake. Some of us more than others. And so silence is not an option. You have to speak out, you have to say something, you have to shut that behavior down in its tracks. And the more we do that, the more people would just stop being idiots about it. I think is some of the things and the concerns people have, for lack of a better term, so dumb, so stupid. I still haven't had it, and I just want to use an example. I still haven't had the conversation with my niece yet about my partner and I, because the adults in the family think, she's too young to know about LGBTQI things. And I'm like, this child kids aren't dumb. They know, they seeing it on TV, they're hearing about it, they are aware, and they're smart. And so it's just for us to continue to be open, have these open conversations, even at the risk of sounding stupid, even at the risk of saying something incorrect, as long as you could like take that wrong and learn from it as well, like being okay to get something wrong and willing to learn from it. You know, being okay to say, oh, I didn't know that, or I was wrong about this. Tell me how I can do better. Just be accountable as well. Hold yourselves accountable. Like Dan, like accountability is so sexy. Just do that. Do that. Do that. Do it real good. What advice do you have on addressing performative conditional ambition from friends? I'm gonna tell you something. Yes, it's sexy. Accountability. Yes, let me do that. Let me make a shirt. I want one. I'll buy it. Take all my money. I want a shirt with that on it, a coin and that, right? Cool. To answer that question here, what advice do you have on addressing performative or those people are not your friends? If their support has to be performative, they have to perform their support and their allyship, those are not your friends. And I don't think a lot of energy should be spent trying to convince or educate these people on why they should actually invest and believe in and support what you are and what you believe in and what you identify as. That don't make any sense. You will be screaming into the void. I think a lot of people pretend because they feel like if they say how they really feel deep inside, that people will attack them, people will say things about them, people will come down on them. But it shows up in other ways. The way they really feel will show up in other ways eventually. And personally, I've had a lot of those, but I've rid myself of those people because it's not healthy for me personally. It's not good for my mental health. And those are the people who they will be very supportive in front of your face, but they will say a lot of bad things behind your back, and we really don't need that energy. You know? Just continue to do you and represent the community and yourself in the best way that you could, even if the best way it could is like liking a post on Facebook or sharing it. It have so many ways it could be supportive, you know, and it's not always about like screaming queer rights is human rights. It's not always about just being that visible. Sometimes it's these small unseen things that collectively add up to make a greater statement. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. And I love that we having the allyship conversation, because that's really important. That's a really important conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all the questions. So if y'all have questions, y'all could ask still. If anybody would like to say anything, floor open. I'm afraid to tell y'all to private message me again, but I'm paying attention this time. So, you know, if you want, you could private message me for you. If your throat sore, talk and it'll feel better. I promise. You know you love to talk. Come on, do a little talky talky. Would you like to say anything, Danny? I'm gonna mute and I'm going to let you speak because I know you have a lot of opinions. Peer pressure. Anonymous person, would you like to speak as well? You're all the waste my time. We have other things to move on to, so hurry it up. If you're talking, you're talking. If you're not talking, you have important things doing. I'm talking specifically to you, Danny, when I say don't waste my time. Because I know you would love to say something. Yeah, I know you'd love to say something. So we had to move on. So I'm waiting for you. to say what you had to say, and then we'll move on. And if you want to talk of the record, I'll cut you off the recording, babe. We'll say it after. Okay. No worries. Love you still. Okay. So we have a treat, guys. Our guest.
That can be offensive.
People, we have a treat, everybody. Y'all, I slipped up on my inclusive language. It happens. Yeah, so our guest has offered themselves to share a poem because they are a spoken word poet. Yeah, we have a lot of spoken word poets. So I'm gonna let them talk to you all about that. Things nice today.
Yeah, kind of. I have some poems that a poem. Make sure my language is correct. That I will feel like if people follow me, they probably heard this before. I have new stuff, but
We are open to hearing anything you'd like to share, really. It's
just
all of it. We are grateful.
all right, hold on. Let me close this a little bit and make it small so I can see myself. I just organizing the screen, sorry. I'm talking out loud like a crazy person.
There's no problem. And I understand completely.
All right. So yeah, this poem is called Pass This Message to My Mother. I recently did I performed for Pride TT, and just a disclaimer, not that I need to do that. I've been working through a lot of things through my poetry, and I haven't done that for years because a lot of my poems were, commission stuff and stuff that I do for projects, and not specifically like poems that I use to channel specific energies through. So this is one of these poems. And so, yeah, I'll just jump into that. Tell my mother she never had a daughter to begin with. Tell her that her girl child used to look into mirrors and wish she was other. If the devil asked for my soul in exchange for the removal of the question mark that hung over my head, I would have taken his offer, taken certainty over this minefield of anatomy and all of the talks of blasphemy, all of the assumptions made about my body without anybody asking me. Tell my mother, God, though like ugly. Ask her if he never makes mistakes, how come she wishes me remade? Imagine an image of God that is too good to be good. Tell her the binary is overrated, that there must be a verse somewhere in the Bible against rejecting your firstborn. Tell her baptizing me so many times only prolong the inevitable. Tell her I wish that she'd accept me for the way that I am, the way I've accepted that she can't. Tell her I wasn't just a tomboy. That closets used to be prayer rooms before people started hanging things in them. That the dresses she used to put me in used to feel like imprisonment. I didn't like the sound of my voice, nor my breasts, nor the entire composition of my body. Tell her I had to learn how I could cuss here. Tell her I had to learn how to live in this body because my home is a shitty place here. We see it's sin to be soft or otherworldly here. People keep us small, make us shrink, and we pass the boxes on to our children like relay trauma is rinsed, repeated, and held up for us to carry like trophies. Look at me, all void of prayer and holy. I am not something a parent could be proud of. Tell my mother I was always a little out of orbit. Tell her no amount of cut ass would have set me straight. Tell her I'm surprised she didn't even see what I was when she was at church morning. That most days I feel often. like an immigrant roaming a foreign land. Tell my mother, I still don't have a handle on the language of this body. I still haven't learned the customs of this skin. Tell her I am something out of this world, and it's okay for her to think me alien, that she doesn't have to love me if it's hard to. Tell her that in an alternate universe, her love is effortless. In another, she does not wish me dead. Tell her I cannot be prayed away, that no amount of flags planted or offerings burnt black would make me bring her less shame. Tell her some days I feel like I've lost her in one of the most permanent ways. And I cry the same way I used to when I was a child, imagining a world with her gone. Tell my mother she should have held me as tightly as she clutched her Bibles. Reassure me of her love, the way she would recite prayers or praise. Tell her I wish she would look at me and not feel regret. Wish sometimes that I had the kind of rage to break everything that she loved that was not me, every altar she bowed to that seemed to feed her hate. Tell my mother I am the gayest thing that she will ever see. Yes, I love women, and even though this body says differently, I am not one. Tell her I am an accumulation of amens and omens, and often I wish she didn't care so much about what people think, or how every wrong thing about me made her look. Tell her I am estranged only because she refuses to accept me for who I am. But I know it's hard, and I wouldn't want her to force something that does not come by nature. Tell her this body is a museum. Tell her I am not dead yet. Tell her I will live by my own terms, that if I am not real, then I must be magic. Tell her I am magic. Thank you.
Wow, that was we have to. Everybody just moved. And I know everybody just relating as well, because I relating over here, and it's just it's so moving. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that piece. Okay, so does anybody have anything they would like to say, they would like to ask, they would like to mention before our speaker leaves? Because this is your last chance in a while. But while while you organize your thoughts, and get over that brilliant piece of art that we were just exposed to, I would like to ask you if you could drop your info, or where can we find you? Where can we follow you on the social media and such?
Instagram, Deneka Thomas _ as DENEKA _ YouTube, Deneka Thomas. TikTok, Deneka Thomas. No, actually, it's Deneka. Also, Skype doesn't have any limits. I know people abandon Skype now because Zoom is the new thing, but Skype doesn't have any limits, just saying. Yeah, so just search my name and things, guys. You'll be able to find me. I'm currently reworking my website. So y'all could look out for whenever I decide on Instagram to let people know that it is live. Not that it will probably won't have anything you're interested in on there, but if you just want to back on my business as a feeder, I'm working on reworking my website. And otherwise, yeah, Instagram, if you want to know something, shoot my message on there. And I honestly am terrible with messages, but I will get to every message eventually. That's just how it is. I can't help it. It's just ingrained in my DNA to be terrible at just my phone. Like, that's just the way it is. Right now, my entire phone screen is shattered. So I'm even more disenchanted with the idea of social media, but I will get it eventually it kind of starts.
Great, great, great. And I'm sure there are things that all of us will be interested in when your website is complete.
Yeah, you.
And you know, some of us just fast, so some of us will just be there for Tamako, really, in reality. Um, but if that is all from everybody, I think that we can end for today. So if anybody, yeah, okay, y'all
I just
okay?
saying yeah, as in I cool with that. I need to rush
No,
earlier. Thanks for having me.
no
I want to say
worries.
thank you very much for having me. This is a very dope platform. Keep doing it. See if you could branch out, reach out to more youth, queer youth, because I know personally there are a lot of youth that would desperately need a platform, not just a platform, a safe space like this to just talk and vibes with other queer youth, and just safely. I think social media is just this, so many avenues to just have safe discussion with people like us. So keep doing the vibes. Really good job.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming to join us and share your valuable information, your valuable advice. We really, really appreciate you. And we hope to see what you have coming up in the future. And
Yes. All right. So now I'm very look out for it. As long as my very ADHD brain gets me to just keep writing, I'm working on a very quick collection of poems. So that is something that y'all could look forward to if y'all want to read more queer stuff about me.
beautiful. We love that. We love. Trust me. That's what we love here. Um. So if anybody would like to fit in anything, it's not too late, but it will be too late in like 10 seconds. So you can hurry it up if you want to. But yeah, um I appreciate y'all for coming out today too. I know everybody have exams and things. So, a lot of people missing meetings and such. But yes, that poem was really moving and I gonna be reeling from it in a week, sitting in the exam room trying to finish my paper, thinking about how amens and omens and all them things. So yeah, all the hard lines, all the hard lines. Um, but yeah, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate what you do. And I know everybody here who may not have known about you from before will be coming to find you, look at all of these stuff that you do. Y'all check out their Instagram, check out their TikTok, check out their YouTube. All of that have real thing on it, and I know they will like it. So find all yourselves in a position to check out some good stuff. But yeah. Um
So I will make my leave now. Thank you very, very much for having me again. And yeah, vibes. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you for coming. Good night. Bye bye. Um, so I'm gonna continue and then we'll end. Next week, next week is quite tentative. We might um have another queer mentor, or we will move on to our queer literature segment where we will explore queer literature. So y'all could look out for either. More info will be on the Instagram by the end of the week, so y'all would know about that. And I really hope y'all enjoyed the session that we had today. So as usual, remember, if you're not following the Instagram page, you could go follow the Instagram. If you have the Instagram, you could tell your friends. When we post, you could share it with your friends. And if you have any questions, queries, comments, or concerns about QCCC or about anything at all, you could feel free to DM us or send us an email. Or if you have anything you'd like to know right now, you can ask, or you could just send me a direct message, or put it in the chat, and that'll be okay. Or you could feel free to unmute right now. But right now, what I do want to know is how your thoughts today's session was. So I can unmute now, and I can allow you all to share your opinion with me.
I had fun today. Very insightful stuff.
What is it?
I really appreciate hearing that. And I'm glad you enjoyed yourself today. I'm glad to see you back. We missed you for the past 2 weeks, I think. So yeah, happy to hear that. Anybody else? So somebody said in the chat that they enjoyed the session and that they love what we're doing and keep doing it. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback. And I'm glad you enjoyed today. So we're gonna move on now to thank you all for coming. Somebody said that they enjoyed the poem especially, and though it was great. Okay, yeah, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate y'all. We really appreciate that y'all take your time off on a Sunday evening to come and interact with us, vibe with us, and learn about queer stuff and engage. So thank you so much for coming. Hope to see y'all next week, same time, 6 on the Zoom. And yeah, I hope yeah, 6 outside on the Zoom.